Usually when we think about human progress, we imagine this unified, steady march forward.
Right, like a synchronized evolution.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
we invent the wheel and everyone slowly gets a cart. We discover electricity and step by step, the whole world lights up in unison.
It's a very comforting narrative. I mean, it makes intuitive sense.
It does, but then you actually look at the world around us today and that illusion it completely shatters. Because right now, I mean, we are looking at a society that is fundamentally split down the middle.
Oh, absolutely.
On one side, we have this digital realm moving at absolute light speed, generating wealth and capabilities that are almost hard to comprehend. And then on the exact same day, we are still grappling with these incredibly heavy, stubborn, physical world realities.
Realities that just refuse to be optimized.
Right. And today's deep dive is really a masterclass in those exact contrasts. We are pulling directly from the June 24, 2026 edition of the Daily Tech Reader, and we've got a lot of ground to cover.
We really do. It's the ultimate stress test of our modern era. And I can promise you, by the time we finish our analysis today, the seemingly random dots between, microscopic AI chips, the friction of global elections, and even a surprisingly dangerous caterpillar infestation in Berlin.
Which is wild, by the way.
It really is, but it will all make logical sense. It all comes down to the sheer tension between the virtual and the visceral.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the digital side of the equation first, because the numbers coming out of the tech sector are just staggering. I'm looking at the Q3 earnings report from Micron, the semiconductor giant.
Yeah, the blowout report.
Blowout is an understatement. They reported a revenue of $41.46 billion. Just to put that in perspective for you, the street estimate was $35.84 billion.
So they didn't just beat expectations.
No, they completely recalibrated them. That is up 346% year over year.
And we really have to look at the why behind that massive 346% leap. It's driven almost entirely by the insatiable demand for HBM, that's high bandwidth memory.
Right, which is crucial for AI.
Exactly. To put it simply, if artificial intelligence models are the brains of this new digital economy, HBM is essentially how fast those brains can access their own thoughts.
Oh, I like that. So you can have the smartest AI in the world, but if it can't pull data fast enough, it's useless.
Right. You just cannot run modern, complex AI without it. That's why Micron's data center revenue alone didn't just grow. It multiplied 7-fold.
Wow.
Yeah, up to $11.5 billion.
I always hear people use that old California gold rush analogy, the idea that the people making money are the ones selling the pickaxes.
Sure, yeah.
But I actually think that's the wrong way to look at it here. This isn't people wandering into the hills hoping to get lucky. It's more like we are building the electrical grid for an entirely new civilization.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right, because right now everyone is obsessed with the new appliances, the AI software, the chatbots. But Micron and companies like Qualcomm, they are laying the high voltage lines. Without them, none of the appliances turn on.
That's a much more accurate mechanism to think about. And to your point about Qualcomm, they just came out with an Investor Day projection forecasting $15 billion in their own data center sales by 2029.
That is a massive forecast.
It is. And between Micron's actual earnings and Qualcomm's forecast, we saw a $400 billion AI chip rally ignite in after-hours trading.
Wait, $400 billion.
$400 billion in market value added in a matter of hours.
Which is just mind-bending. But, is this just numbers on a screen? Because sometimes these tech rallies feel incredibly isolated from the rest of the culture.
Well, what's fascinating here is that this isn't just a theoretical tech bubble happening in isolated server farms out in the desert. This digital infrastructure has officially permeated the creative and cultural economy.
Like what we saw at Ton.
Exactly. Look at the results from the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity that just wrapped up on the French Riviera. The Grand Prix categories across film, print, and digital were completely dominated by AI-integrated campaigns and purpose-driven brand work.
So it's not just making funny pictures anymore.
Not at all. It is synthesizing vast amounts of data to find the exact emotional resonance required to win the highest awards in global advertising.
So it's literally writing the ads that you and I see every day. And for you, listening right now, this matters on a very personal level. This tech hypercycle isn't just a headline. It is actively reshaping your 401k, the investments you hold, and the very media landscape you interact with.
Absolutely.
But I do want to pump the brakes for a second, because if we look at the broader economy, the actual physical economy where things get built, moved, and consumed, it tells a very different story. Are we seeing a split between the digital economy and the physical economy?
Oh, we are seeing a massive, undeniable divergence. Before Micron released those after-hours earnings and injected all that euphoria into the market, the broader indices were actually quite sluggish.
People were just kind of waiting around.
Yeah, you had investors sitting on their hands. The Nasdaq slipped 0.43%. The S&P 500 fell 0.1%. But the Dow Jones actually added 182 points because investors were rotating their money out of tech and into non-tech physical world companies.
But even in that physical world, things look incredibly fragile. I mean, look at FedEx. Their shares fell about 6%.
Which is interesting because they actually had a narrow revenue beat in Q4.
Right. But investors punished the stock anyway. And the reason why is crucial. The market saw weak freight demand signals in their underlying data.
And FedEx is effectively the circulatory system of the physical economy. If data centers are the nervous system moving information, FedEx is the blood-moving, actual, tangible goods.
So when freight demand is weak,
it tells you that the physical movement of products, the buying, selling, packing, and shipping of real things is sluggish. So you have AI printing money in the cloud, while physical shipping struggles on the ground.
that is quite the contrast.
You even saw Cerebra's, a major tech player, drop 11% after its first post-IPO earnings report.
Wait, I need to stop you there because that contradicts what we just talked about.
Right.
Cerebra's is an AI chip company. Why are they dropping 11% in the middle of a $400 billion AI rally?
Because of the physical cost of doing business, their stock dropped because their core gross margin guidance really rattled investors.
Okay, let's translate that for a second. Gross margin guidance, basically, they signal to the market that it's going to cost them a lot more money to physically manufacture their products than investors were hoping.
Exactly. The gap between what it costs to make the chip and what they can sell it for is shrinking.
Right.
It shows that even in the heart of the tech sector, if the fundamental physical business mechanics look shaky, reality bites.
And reality is about to come knocking for the entire economy on Thursday. We are looking at the highly anticipated May PCE inflation reading and the revised Q1 GDP estimates.
Those are the two critical data points the Federal Reserve will use to make their July rate cut decisions.
And the PCE, that's personal consumption expenditures, right?
Right. It's the Fed's preferred inflation gauge because it doesn't just look at sticker prices. It tracks the actual mechanisms of how consumer habits shift when things get expensive. Thursday is going to be the ultimate reality check.
The moment where the euphoria and a digital rally crashes straight into the sober reality of consumer inflation. And, economic friction always bleeds into political friction.
It always does.
You can't have a two-track economy without the pressure eventually cracking the system. Let's look at how these heavy physical world pressures are playing out in Washington and the courts right now. But before we get into it, we should explicitly state that we are taking an objective, bird's-eye view of these politically charged items.
Absolutely. We are simply reporting the source material without taking any partisan stance.
Right. We're not endorsing any viewpoints, just trying to convey the mechanics of what's happening.
Yeah.
Because the system right now is incredibly dynamic, and we are seeing tension at every single level of governance.
Starting right at the top with executive action. President Trump refused to sign a bipartisan housing bill.
And then, a court filing revealed that Trump spoke directly to the CEO of Live Nation right before the government settled an antitrust case against the company.
Which shows a very direct, personalized friction between the executive branch, the legislative branch, and corporate America. The levers of power are being pulled in very unorthodox ways.
And that tension extends straight into the judicial system, which is basically acting as a massive decentralized pressure testing mechanism for the entire country. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the courts aren't moving in lockstep at all.
No, not even close.
You have federal judges pulling the country in two completely different directions depending on the issue. Like on the voting front, a federal judge blocked the Trump administration's proof of citizenship requirement to vote.
That is a massive ruling right ahead of the 2026 midterms. It completely halts a cornerstone policy of the administration.
But then you look at immigration and the mechanism flips entirely. A completely different federal appeals court reinstated the Trump administration's fast-track deportation authority.
And they did it nationwide. They reversed a lower court's ruling, which now allows expedited deportations of undocumented migrants anywhere in the U.S., not just near the border.
So you have the judicial branch simultaneously acting as a brick wall against the administration on voting policy, while acting as a massive accelerator for the administration on deportation policy.
It perfectly illustrates the sheer unpredictability of the U.S. legal framework right now.
It really does.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we see that same unpredictable tension playing out at the local level, specifically in the New York primaries. The results there are a perfect microcosm of the larger political landscape.
Yeah, let's talk about New York.
So Mayor Zoran Mamdani endorsed a slate of progressive candidates. In 3 safe Democratic seats, his endorsed progressives swept the elections, actually ousting 2 sitting incumbents.
Wow.
But in the more competitive battleground districts, the moderate candidates held their ground and won.
I think we really need to look at the how behind that. How do progressives sweep the safe districts, but lose the competitive ones on the exact same day?
It comes down to voter calculus.
Right. In a safe district, the primary election essentially is the general election. Whoever wins the primary takes the seat. So the voters prioritize ideological purity. They want the candidate who most closely aligns with their exact values.
But in a competitive district, voters shift to survival mode. They are calculating who can actually survive a messy general election against the opposing party, so they vote for pragmatic moderation.
It's a fascinating mechanical shift in how voters behave based purely on the geography of their district.
It really is.
And just to add to the messy, localized reality of New York politics, we also had the news that former NYC Mayor Eric Adams's former chief of staff was arrested in a federal bribery probe.
Which is just another reminder of the heavy human flaws that plague local governance, while the tech sector we talked about earlier is off dreaming in the cloud.
Exactly. But it's not just a domestic issue. These political shifts and structural frictions are reshaping global alliances too. Look across the pond at the UK.
Right. Andy Burnham is nearing a completely uncontested path to becoming prime minister.
Because his only serious rival, Darren Jones, just stepped aside. If Burnham runs unopposed when nominations open, he could literally be the prime minister by July 17.
That is a lightning-fast transition of power. The speed of that turnover in European leadership is staggering, especially when you consider it's happening right as global security alliances are under massive strain.
Like with NATO.
Exactly. President Trump just met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte at the White House, and Trump renewed his threats to leave the alliance altogether.
And this is happening just days before a major NATO leaders summit in Turkey next week. Okay, I have to challenge this narrative a bit.
Go for it.
If we have lightning-fast turnover in the UK government, and the U.S. president is actively threatening to pull out of the premier Western military alliance, that sounds like a recipe for absolute geopolitical panic.
You would think so.
Right. So why did the price of Brent crude oil just plummet 4.3%, down to $73.74 a barrel? That's the lowest it's been since late February. Shouldn't global instability make oil prices spike?
It's a brilliant question, and it perfectly highlights the difference between political rhetoric and physical reality.
Okay, break that down for us.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, geopolitical noise does not always equal physical supply chain disruption. While politicians are threatening each other in press conferences, the actual physical ships in the Strait of Hormuz are experiencing improved easing conditions.
So the oil's flowing more freely.
Exactly. Insurers and logistics companies don't price their risk based on a press conference. They price it based on whether a tanker can physically move from point A to point B safely.
That makes total sense.
The physical supply is dictating the price, completely overriding the political theory.
The physical reality always wins out. And we saw another incredible, almost biological example of physical reality forcing a policy change this week with the U.S. military. The Pentagon abruptly restored mandatory flu shots for all new recruits.
And why is that?
Because a boot camp outbreak sickened nearly 300 service members.
It's the perfect bridge between administration and biology. You can have whatever policy debate you want in Washington about whether vaccines should be mandated. But when 300 recruits get sick in close quarters, the policy debate ends instantly.
Right. A virus does not care about your administrative stance.
The physical reality of illness forced an immediate, localized reversal to maintain operational readiness.
Biology doesn't read memos. And that transition from the heavy logistics of global oil to the fragile reality of the human body brings us to the final part of our deep dive. When you look at the news through the lens of anniversaries, anomalies, and the daily scoreboard, you really see the full spectrum of our physical environment pushing back against us.
You really do. And sometimes the consequences of neglecting the physical world are profoundly sobering. Like this week, Florida marks the 5-year anniversary of the Champlain Tower's south collapse in Surfside.
98 people were killed.
Yes, in what remains one of the most catastrophic structural failures in U.S. history.
5 years. And it has completely renewed debates over state building safety regulations. We spend so much time obsessing over the architecture of our software, but Surfside is a tragic reminder of what happens when the physical infrastructure we rely on, concrete, rebar, salt, and earth, fails us.
The slow, invisible decay of the real world has ultimate consequences.
It does, but structural failure isn't the only way our environment throws a curveball. Sometimes the hazard is entirely ecological.
Right, like in Berlin right now, authorities are warning residents to completely avoid city parks because of an infestation of toxic oak processionary moth caterpillars.
Okay, I mentioned this earlier, but that sounds like a B-movie sci-fi plot. Toxic caterpillars shutting down a major European capital.
It sounds completely absurd, but the mechanics of it are deeply tied to our changing environment. These caterpillars thrive in warming urban microclimates.
And what makes them toxic?
They have these fine, toxic hairs that break off and become airborne, causing severe skin irritation, eye damage, and respiratory reactions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a prime example of how urban planning and changing ecological conditions can suddenly turn a peaceful public park into a biohazard. Our physical cities are changing biologically.
Speaking of cities dealing with environmental extremes, if you are listening to us down in Dallas-Fort Worth right now, you are living this. DFW is facing persistent, punishing heat. We're talking highs near 93 degrees, lows only dropping to 77.
Offering almost no thermal relief at night.
Exactly. And that isn't just a weather update, it's an infrastructure stress test. When temperatures refuse to drop at night, it strains the power grid as air conditioners run 24/7. It causes thermal expansion in roadways. It creates a shared physical struggle for millions of people that no app can fix.
But humanity isn't just about weathering disasters, fighting off toxic caterpillars, or enduring the heat. It's also about culture, connection, and the things we physically create.
Yeah, and this week we lost a titan of that cultural connection. Clive Davis, the legendary music producer, has died.
His legacy is truly unmatched. He discovered and developed Whitney Houston, Bruce Springsteen, Santana, Alicia Keys.
Just massive, massive names.
And think about the contrast here. We started this deep dive talking about AI dominating the Cannes Lions Festival with algorithms synthesizing data to generate award-winning creativity.
Right.
But Clive Davis represents the irreplaceable, unquantifiable human element. He had what the industry called an ear for talent. You cannot program that. One individual's intuition and physical perception shaped the global cultural soundtrack for decades.
And another place where that unscripted, deeply human passion is on full display right now is the World Cup. It is the ultimate global scoreboard, and the psychological stakes are just massive right now.
Oh, absolutely.
In Group C, Brazil just routed Scotland 3-0 in Miami to top their group, which means Scotland, a team that has never, ever reached a World Cup knockout round, is now just sweating it out, trapped in this agonizing mathematical limbo.
Hoping their single previous win is enough to advance them as a third-place team. The math is brutal.
It really is.
And meanwhile, in Group B, Switzerland beat Canada 3-1, and Bosnia beat Qatar 3-1. Both Switzerland and Bosnia advance. But look at Canada. They were unbeaten heading into this match.
And they were eliminated right in front of their home crowd.
Think about the immense physical and emotional weight of a home stadium turning completely silent as the realization sets in.
Here's the brutal beauty of the sport. You just can't script it. And the drama continues tonight. Day 14. Mexico is playing Czechia. South Korea faces South Africa. And the mechanics of that matchup are incredibly tight.
Because South Korea only needs a draw to advance, but South Africa must win to stay alive.
Exactly. And then Thursday night at SoFi Stadium, the U.S. men's national team faces Turkey. It's one of the few events that truly unifies the globe in a shared, visceral, unoptimized experience.
It strips away all the theory and brings millions together just to watch human beings push the absolute limits of their physical capability in real time.
So what does this all mean? We started this journey looking at $400 billion surges in digital AI architecture. We analyzed the localized friction of American courts, the rapid political shifts in the UK, the biological realities of military flu outbreaks, and the sheer heartbreak of the World Cup.
And it leaves us with a vital question, something for you to consider as you close out your day. Today, we saw billions upon billions of dollars flow seamlessly into digital AI clouds and future hardware. The enthusiasm and capital for the virtual world is absolutely boundless.
Right.
Yet simultaneously, we are still struggling to build safe physical condos in Florida. We're struggling to move physical freight reliably for FedEx. We're even struggling to keep toxic caterpillars out of our public parks.
As our digital intelligence approaches science fiction levels, are we neglecting the basic, messy maintenance of our physical world? It's something to really chew on the next time you hear about a trillion-dollar tech valuation while you're sitting in gridlock traffic on a crumbling road. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Daily Tech Reader. Keep questioning the world around you, both the digital and the physical. We'll see you next time.